Greetings and good afternoon. I'm David Brule. I chair the Nolambika Project, who is your host for the afternoon in this series. We're dedicated to providing the general public with opportunities to learn about the history, life ways, and persistence of Indigenous peoples in our region. Today, we're beginning a series of screenings that provide deep perspective to Indigenous history here in the Northeast and beyond. We always begin our events with an acknowledgement that we are all occupying and benefiting from Indigenous lands. The first peoples have lived here for tens of thousands of years in balance and reciprocity with the earth. We must continue to be thankful to this earth with whom we share the wonderful gifts of our rivers, forests, and fellow creatures who are truly our kinfolk. We give thanks for all good things. By the same token, we want to give thanks to our sponsors. The Karuna Center for Peacebuilding, founded 25 years ago in Amherst, Mass., has an outreach that ranges across the planet to reach more than 40 countries, many of which have been affected by violence. The Karuna Center works to support dialogue, to heal from trauma, foster reconciliation, and build inclusive government. Karuna, with support from the Mass Humanities Council, has also been convening a virtual workshop series entitled Erasure and Restoration, facilitated by Indigenous and non-Indigenous allies. The River Valley Co-op, based in Northampton, Massachusetts, is a role model for food cooperatives that encourage sustainability and fair trade. The River Valley Co-op has worked with the Nolambika Project and others since 2016, honoring the ancestors of this land. To learn from the past is a part of healing and working together to build a better future. And now I'd like to present briefly our filmmaker, Ted Timrick, who since 1976 has been exploring and filming sites that will be the focus of the series of films that we'll be presenting over the next 4 screenings. Ted holds a research position in the associate program of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. He has been working with the museum's Arctic Studies Center since 1980. Ted has been breaking new ground with Doug Harris, as you will see. Doug Harris, whom we will meet shortly, is the moving force behind efforts to locate ceremonial stone landscapes and preserve these sites as important parts of our cultural heritage and national treasure. Together, they have blended scientific research methodology with Indigenous insights, knowledge, and wisdom to provide us with a unique and remarkable body of work that crosses cultural lines. As a reminder, after screening today's first part of this film, there will be an opportunity to ask questions of the 2 presenters. You can begin at any time putting in your questions into the Q&A icon. We want to thank Diane Dix ahead of time, who will be fielding your questions and passing them on to the 2 people. The first film will be concluded tomorrow afternoon, Sunday afternoon, beginning at 2 o'clock. Please come back and enjoy the rest of the program. And I'll turn now the rest of what I have to say over to Ted Timrick.
So I'd like to offer a short history of how this series came to be. I began shooting footage of the mysterious stone ruins of New England in 1976 and didn't finish this movie, Great Falls, until 2008. 45 years ago, I began going into the woods with a group of eccentric pioneers, Byron Dix, Betty Zinserbo, Jim Whittall, and many others. These were the original researchers who led Barry Fell to the sites that inspired him to write his first book, America BC. Barry Fell influenced many people with his idea that ancient Phoenicians once traveled from the Mediterranean to America, built their stone temples deep in the woods, and left messages carved into the stones that apparently only he could read. To me, this kind of thinking indicated a vacuum in Northeastern history. The sites were very unusual, but local archaeologists only suggested a colonial attitude when they insisted that European settlers were the first and only people to move large rocks in the Northeast. By 1979, working with Byron Dix, Jim Mavor, and another great archaeological researcher named William Getzmann, we all came to the conclusion that in New England, there was no trace of any Phoenician presence in the archaeological record, and that these stone sites could have been created by Native Americans. Also, by 1979, the question of the stone ruins in Eastern North America had become perhaps the most controversial issue in American archaeology. And at the time, our suggesting that they might be native made everybody hate us, antiquarian diffusionists and colonial-minded scientists alike. That's when, long before the internet, Will Getzmann and I went down to the Smithsonian to try and find an archaeologist who could tell us if there were any new discoveries in native archaeology that might help us figure things out. We were lucky because Bill Fitzhugh from the Smithsonian's Arctic Studies Center invited us to join him and document his excavations in northern Labrador. What we saw along the Atlantic Labrador coast in terms of native ceremonial stone sites, sometimes going back 8,000 years, changed everything about the question of what these places might be. And then I had the tremendous good fortune to meet Doug Harris. We've worked together steadily ever since, and we've tried to carefully merge native and scientific voices to offer stories that help audiences begin to understand these unusual environmental and cultural resources that exist sometimes hidden in our backyards, and to introduce the very different early Eastern native history that our textbooks don't tell us about. This whole series, beginning with the stone landscapes in Great Falls, offers that story. So let me just begin.